Chandy first met Raj Reddy when they enrolled for the 2-year intermediate course in Loyola College, Madras in 1952. Raj hails from Patur village of Chittoor district in Andhra Pradesh. You'll be surprised to know that he was seeing a big city like Madras for the first time and could barely speak English. However, he was very bright in his studies and secured admission in the College of Engineering, Guindy, for a 4-year civil engineering degree course, while Chandy joined the same college for a 4-year mechanical engineering degree course. They got their degrees in 1958 and together went to Melbourne, Australia to get work experience under a student exchange scheme. They obtained jobs in Melbourne through the Melbourne University. Raj and Chandy worked with the Country Roads Board of Victoria, corresponding to the Public Works Department in India. Raj then moved to Sydney to do MTech in civil engineering at the University of New South Wales, where he was exposed to computers for the very first time. He was so fascinated by computers that he took a job as an applications engineer with IBM in Canberra. After working with IBM for 2 years, he enrolled in Stanford University, USA, to do a PhD in computer science. He worked at Stanford University in various capacities, after which he moved to Carnegie Mellon University, where he has continued till date. He is married to Anuradha and have 2 daughters, Shyamla and Geeta, and 2 grandsons. Chandy and Raj have kept in touch with each other over the last 70 years, meeting whenever possible with their Guindy classmates when Raj comes to Bangalore. Now for the formal biodata. Dr. Raj Reddy obtained his BE Civil Engineering from the College of Engineering Guindy, University of Madras. He obtained his MTech degree in Civil Engineering from the University of New South Wales in Australia. He obtained his PhD in Computer Science from Stanford University. He joined Carnegie Mellon University faculty first as an associate professor of computer science, followed by full professor and university professor. He is the founding director of the Robotics Institute and was also the dean of the School of Computer Science. He has been active in research for over 50 years in the areas of artificial intelligence, robotics, multi-sensor fusion, intelligence agents, image understanding, and speech understanding. His current research interests are in digital democracy, technology in service of society, speech-to-speech translation among Indian languages, and voice computing for the semi-literate populations at the bottom of the pyramid. Apart from more than a dozen honorary doctorates from different universities, Dr. Reddy was awarded Legion of Honor by President Mitterrand of France, which is the highest honor conferred on citizens. The ACM Turing Award, considered the equivalent of a Nobel Prize in the field of computer science. Padma Bhushan by the President of India. Okawa Prize, the Honda Prize, the Vannevar Bush Award. He also served as co-chair of the US President's Information Technology Advisory Committee. He is a founding member of the International Board of Governors of Perez Center for Peace in Israel. Thank you.
Thank you, Nina. We now will not delay the program any further. Over to Dr. Reddy. Or the mic is there. Would you like it closer? Or would you want it to?
I'll just use this one.
Yeah.
Good evening. It's a pleasure for me to be here because Sandy is my closest friend, and we have the unique distinction of being together for over 15 years from Loyola. We both joined at Loyola College together in 1952. Then afterwards, when I went to, we went to Indian Engineering College. I didn't know he was coming there, but when I ran into him, he was, we were both delighted to see him. And then what happened was we ended up finishing our degree together and looking for different opportunities. And there was an opportunity to go as an intern to Australia. And we had a third friend, P. Krishnamurthy. The three of us went out to Australia, not knowing what we were going to do. And even going there was an adventure itself. I'll talk about it. It's one of the aspects. But we landed in Melbourne, and we didn't know what to expect. So we ended up in one of the student dormitories because we were being treated as student interns. And the first evening when we went there, it turns out, I knew Australia was famous for their beef and so on. And I didn't have a clue, and maybe Sandy also didn't have a clue of what the steak looked like. And there was this huge piece of meat and being served. None of us could even look at it, leave it alone, pick it up and eat it. So the three of us had bread, butter, and jam for dinner that night. That's all. And everybody else was going for seconds and thirds, helpings of steak. And it took me, I had promised my mother I would not touch beef. But it took me 3 or 4 years to get over that. And then I told my mother, well, Australian cows are not sacred. Only Indian cows are sacred. She accepted it. So anyway, it has been a great adventure for me because I've been in the computing field from the time beginning. It was like I got into it in 1959. That's when the commercial computer was just beginning to come in. Before that, there were some, but not very many, handful of computers. And since then, I've seen all technologies, all changes, and so on. I was also very fortunate when I went to Stanford as a graduate student. That was the beginning of funding for artificial intelligence. There was I don't know if you know the name DARPA or ARPA, Advanced Research Projects Agency. And ARPA was founded as a way of responding to Sputnik, and because the US became scared that maybe they're falling behind in their technologies. So the Advanced Research Projects Agency was set up very differently than all the other agencies for research and development. They have complete freedom, unlike others. For example, here, if you're doing something, you have to go through tenders and publish this and do that. They could decide to fund anything they want and anywhere they want without any control. And the only control they had was they always picked the best people available in the country to lead these agencies. There was a person called J.C.R. Licklider, who is credited with thinking about the internet. he didn't build it. He didn't even do anything other than encourage younger people to go ahead with it. But he talked about intergalactic internet, as a way of connecting the thing. And he had, I'm sure, I knew him well, because he was professor at MIT and went there. And so in 1963, he decided time has come to fund artificial intelligence. So he arbitrarily picked 3 institutions, which he knew: MIT, Carnegie Mellon, and Stanford. So when I went to Stanford, that was the first year the funding had been sent, and we had a computer that PDP-1. Before then, I was working for IBM, and where 1 hour of computer time was costing between $1,000 to $10,000, depending on the size of the machine. And the same cost factor was there for bigger mainframe computers. But this PDP-1 was like a lab computer, a mini computer. And it turned out all the other kids, graduate students, would work normal hours because they're Americans. And they would go from morning to 5 o'clock. Many of them would quit by 6. And I was there from 6 in the evening every night till 8 a.m. in the morning. And nobody to, so here I was using essentially, even if it is not $1,000 an hour, even if it is $1,000 a night, 8 hours or 10 hours, I was spending $1,000 a night every night for the next few years. And I thought I died and went to heaven. It's just unbelievable coming from the expensive structure. What is amazing to me is where we are today. Most of your smartphones have more computing power, 1,000 times more computing power than the one I was using at the time. But it's very interesting how the whole technology has evolved. I can talk about, we're supposed to have a discussion. What I found is, I would kind of prepare a long talk for an hour and give it to people. And maybe 1 or 2 people out of the whole audience are really interested in all the details of the subject. But so what I was proposing, you can all come in here. You don't have to sit on the back. Move the chairs here. You block the path, but that's okay. So as I was saying, I will tell you about what I'm working on, and I'll tell you why I'm working on it. But I'll just give you an outline of it, so that then if you want to hear more about that, I'd be happy to talk about it. But there are lots of other topics you might be interested in, and I may be able to answer. So let us see how we want to proceed on this, what we call fireside chat or something. But I'm glad you're here. So I'm currently working on 2 broad topics. It turns out we've been working on language understanding and speech recognition and computers that can speak and hear and understand language and so on for almost 50 years, 60 years. Finally, we have reached a point where we are at the verge of being able to read any book, see any movie, and talk to anyone in any language at any time and any place. This requires the technology of what we call speech-to-speech translation. Speech-to-speech translation requires if I'm speaking and you're in Hindi and you're speaking in Kannada, we need to be able to talk to each other as though there's no barrier, no language divide. And that requires for me, as soon as I speak something in Hindi or Telugu, which I come from, and my smartphone has to hear what I said and recognize it in Telugu, and then translate it into Kannada, and then synthesize it back into Kannada speech, as though we are both having a normal conversation. We can't quite do it yet, but it's almost there. I think the main thing that right now, what we can demonstrate that if you're using Google Translate or Microsoft Translator, you can pick any language. Unfortunately, they've ignored Indian languages, but you can go from English to Spanish to Japanese, whatever, and whatever you say will be recognized and translated, and it will also speak it out. The main difference is it takes maybe 30 seconds or 10 seconds or something. Whereas if we are talking to each other, we don't wait 10 seconds. We don't even wait 1 second. It's instantaneous, right? So the question is, what do we have to do to reduce this latency? That means we need another 1,000 times more computing power, which will be there in 5-10 years. And also, so if we could do that, in addition to what I just said, if we could do speech recognition, translation, and speech synthesis, not only can you conquer the language divide, it means you can talk to anybody anywhere in the world. But let's start with India, And it turns out there's a project. I think you can even download it. There's an app called Bhashini. If you downloaded the app, it is done by IIT Madras people, and they have done a good job. Main thing it requires is, Microsoft and other, Google have also done some work on Indian languages, but for them, this is not very important. They feel all the educated people in India can speak English, so they don't need to work on all the other languages. So I was on Microsoft Technology Advisory Board. I would keep bugging them, saying, "You don't have a Microsoft word for Telugu or Kannada. Why don't we?" It finally they've released them, but in general, it took them a long time to think Indians might need Indian language word processing or translation or language processing. Anyway, if we could do this, in addition to what we just said, which is, there a problem?
Yeah, so.
If we could do that, it would have a tremendous impact on the world. About 40% of the people cannot read or write. They can't, even in the native language. The only thing they can do is speak. And these 40% of the people, many of them have smartphones right now. And all that they do is, since they can't read the icons or English or any of those things, all that they do is simply make phone calls or to the children or something. Even that they learn by somebody teaches them what to tap and how to speak or something. But going forward, if they could speak to the computer and it would do what they asked them to do, there are lots of things besides reading and watching a movie and speaking to others. Like if you go to a bank, you need to fill in the form. And if you go online to fill in anything like a bank transfer or anything, if you don't know how to read or write, you can't do it. You can overcome all those limitations if you have language computers that understand speech. And this became possible about 2015. I don't know how many of you heard about the thing called smart speakers called Alexa.
Yeah.
And so you could speak to Alexa in English originally, but maybe now that they probably have Alexa for Kannada and Telugu also. But in general, you could ask it, play music or play MS Subbulakshmi music or order something or ask it what the weather was or play the news or something, anything. And you didn't need to know how to read or write or anything. It was, and we used to talk about it in 1990. As soon as I saw it, I said, finally, it took us 25 years, but we are here. And as they say, Louis Pasteur apparently said something like, chance happens to prepared minds. My mind was already prepared for intelligent agents to which you can speak. But when I saw Alexa, I said, my God, finally we have something that might be able to be used by illiterate people in the world, 40%. What that does is amazing, some amazing economic implications of it. It turns out if you bring 40% more or 50% more people who are able to be interconnected, what we call fully connected planet, where everyone is connected to everyone else, and there is no language barrier, there is no literacy barrier, they are able to, do, all the things. We believe the economic growth that will result from adding 50% more people to the internet user population will be not quite double, but will be a factor of 10 or maybe 100. It's exponential because, so I don't know exactly what it will be, but I'm kind of hoping we will be able to not only bring half of the people that are disenfranchised at this point, are not because they can't read or write. And even though they may not be very rich, many of them, they're only earning $2 to $5 a day. 4 billion people spending $5 a day is $20 billion a day to the economy. And if they can actually, so anyway, the number of things like this that will, I think, have a profound impact on society. The other topic I'm working on is what we call guardian angel technology. All of us know if God existed, he knows everything, he sees everything, and he can do anything. Right? Omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent. And I think we are about to enter into an age where we can have total information awareness in a connected planet. If each one of us is connected, and each one of us has a smartphone, and each of us are able to, take our health parameters like a smartwatch or, talking about health, education, all of those things. If you have a guardian angel, your personal angel guide helping you, they could in fact tell you exactly what you're doing wrong in your studies instantaneously, not after 2 nights or two days in the class. So there are lots of things that are possible. The example I give most of the time is, I'm sure many of you remember the 2004 tsunami, Indian Ocean tsunami. 300,000 people died on the South Indian coast because we were not able to kind of reach to them and say, hey, this 100-foot wave is going to hit the coast in 15 minutes. If we could have reached them, we could have saved at least 80% of those lives. So there are lots of things that could happen if you could have guardian angel technology. The broad definition of what a guardian angel is to get the right information to the right people at the right time, in the right language, at the right level of granularity, details. We call it the AI Bill of Rights. But we have a glimpse, inkling of how to go about doing it. You know, my colleague, Heidi Carbonell, who has passed away, and I, used to talk about this in the 90s. But we had no clue how to do it. We still don't know how to do it, but we have a gleam of an idea of how to go about doing it. And it requires a lot more research. This is not in the 10-year horizon, like I said, about language technologies, overcoming the language divide. Here, we're talking about maybe 50-year horizon. How do we give each of us godlike qualities to know what we want to do, at what time, and where, and so on. And there used to be a project called TIA in DARPA in 2005. It's called Total Information Awareness. And when newspapers got hold of it, and they made a big noise, and Congress canceled that research project. It was being led by Admiral Poindexter, of all the people. Some of you may know of him from Iran-Contra controversy. But he had the good idea, but in the wrong direction. In his case, all that information is available to the secret services like NSA, CIA, and so on, about everybody in the planet. And even though the Congress discontinued the project, he went and joined NSA, and they continued that project out to collect information. That's what led to the Snowden thing, where all those people, we were all being surveilled upon. You may not know it. Every phone call you make, every email you send, all of that is being collected and could be seen. And our idea is, this is a personal guardian angel. You can collect all the same information, but it's yours. You own it, not Google, not Amazon, not somebody else. And you can decide what to do with it. It's on your smartphone, nowhere else. In the old days, when we had 1 gigabyte, we used to think it was a major amount of memory. In 1972, I bought 40 megabytes, which is 1/20th of a gigabyte, for $2 million for my research project. Today, you can buy 4 terabytes for $100. So the storage is available in various ways. So the question we were looking at is, can we collect information and store it on your personal cloud or personal machine and use it for your own good, not for anybody else's? It's personal information. So you can't violate it. So the only thing you do is occasionally there may be a request for information from the government or a medical professional or somebody saying, we're looking for people that have high blood pressure in this region. So if you have your blood pressure between here and here, please anonymize your data, remove your name and all the other details, and share that information with us. So there are ways in which we can share information and yet maintain total privacy. In the old days, I used to have a colleague called Atanya Sweeney. She would say, there's no such thing. If you give me any anonymized information, I will tell you who you are. And what she did was that, she took census data, census collect data from everybody, and they anonymized it, removed all the name and address and address and other thing, phone number, and then published it. But they needed to have location information. Where is this from? For that, they kind of put in the zip code. That's all it needed. If you had zip code, then she was able to go back at two other publicly available databases. One of them is motor vehicle database, where you have every driver has their information in a database. So she was able to triangulate this information and say, this person with this census data is so-and-so. And it became a big news item. And however, I don't think we'll have that problem here. You are being, the interesting thing is, it may be good for you to share your blood pressure information or oxygen level information or something, if you're going to benefit from it in some way. The question is, how does a guardian angel or a society tell you that you have COVID? You better quarantine yourself. You cannot simply go around spreading the thing. And that requires another technology, namely, what you do is you broadcast the information. You put it up in the thing saying, we have information that's of importance to this handle. When you anonymize your data, you put in a 32 character or 64 character handle, which only you know what it is. Nobody else knows what it is, right? And it can be actually, and then your guardian angel is constantly looking at all the things that say, if anybody has this handle, contact us and look at this information. So it turns out you don't have to keep looking at the broadcast information, but your guardian angel can be looking. It has not in an amount of time. So there are lots of things that can happen. It can tell you there's going to be a storm, there's going to be flooding in other street, you better go to your second floor apartments or something. And you may not know. Many people die now because they didn't know the information that they're stuck in the thing, and their car is going to get washed away. But if the guardian angel could have told them, don't cross that in a puddle, it might look like this, and in about 10, 15 minutes, it's going to be a flood, you'll be washed away. There are many, I'm not telling you about something futuristic. You must be doing this already with Google Navigator Waze. It knows exactly where the traffic jams are and is able to tell you to take a different route. So, let me come up and then we can talk about other questions. So the two areas I'm interested in, one is like a 10-year horizon, the other one is like a 50-year horizon. We know how to do these things. It'll probably happen, maybe not in my lifetime, but many of you will still be around, and the question will be, and both of them will have profound impact in helping society. I'm only about 15, 20 years ago, I decided I can keep doing research and publishing papers. Let me do something that will help society. And so there's one other thing I would like to tell you about, which is actually already working, and it's been a great pleasure. Around 2007, I was with the Chief Minister of Andhra Pradesh, Dr. Reddy, and I said, look, you come from a village, I come from a village. We escaped, we are black sheep. There's no reason why you should be where you are and I should be where I am. But there are at least 5 other people, kids in my village, which are equally bright. They were probably, some of them got better marks than me, but they're still there in the village. So there's a lot of opportunity, there's a lot of talent that we are wasting. So he said, what should we do? We, as a result, we created a university called Rajiv Gandhi University of Knowledge Technology, RGUKT. Go do a search for that, you'll find it. And the key idea was talent is everywhere, but the opportunity is not. Many of these kids, no matter how smart they might be, don't have the economic or other kinds of means to go to Loyola College. I lucked out, just purely luck. And so the question is there a way to provide the opportunity for the talented people of the world, right? So we said, let's take the top 1%. I said that's too low. If you take the top 10% of any graduating high school class or 10th class, they're probably all outstanding students. Given the opportunity, they would all reach, skylight levels of, up things. So the question is, how do we get them there? So I said, let us start a university only for rural kids. We made, lots of things. You'll find. We gave every one of them a laptop connected. This was in 2008. And because they're poor, they don't have the opportunity. The food was free, the accommodation was free, and the tuition education was free. Then we realized when they came, we missed some other things. We missed that they may not have proper shoes, they may not have proper clothes. So we had to give them uniforms and get them 2 or 3 pairs of shoes, one for work and one for walking or something. And then we discovered, we were trying to just hire people, get people from the thing. But some of them said, because if everything is free, everyone wants to be admitted. And the way we selected them was by saying, you have to be the best student in your school. We don't care about your marks. It doesn't have to be, if you're in a tribal school and you didn't get proper education, you cannot expect them to compete with kids in city schools, public schools. But they're equally talented. But if the marks is the criteria for measurement of how talented you are, then if you are rich and your parents are educated and you have private tuition, you spend 100 hours learning mathematics, and I spend 10 hours learning mathematics, there's no way I'm going to compete with you. So the rural kids are at a great disadvantage if you just use marks as a criteria. So we threw away marks completely. We said, it doesn't matter what your marks are, as long as you're the best student in your school or in your mandal. And then we also applied the reservation principle. We said, every mandal we might admit 4 students, 50 out of the 50,000. Out of the 4, 2 will be OC and OC, the best boy and best girl. And it so happened at the 10th class level, where children are still going to village school, not PUC colleges. Girls are almost invariably better students than boys. But to give you an example, this year the admission, 70% of the students admitted out of the 4,000 and under are girls, 70%. So you don't need a reservation of 25% or 30%. So we lucked out, because as soon as you go to PUC college, then parents said, we don't have the money, it's very unsafe to go there. So they essentially tell the daughters to drop out. And here, since everything is provided, free accommodation, free, secure, free food, free account, everything, it worked out very, pretty well. So on the other hand, we found there were two kinds of students. The students that have money and they can, parents can afford, they were going to private schools. And if you didn't have any other opportunity, you went to public school, really. So the question was, how do you disaggregate this situation so that if you're only looking for the best student in the mandal and they're all going to private schools, again, you're defeating the purpose. So we came up, it took us 5 years to come up with this metric called deprivation score. We did statistical analysis of all the students in every class and look at their marks and distribution of the marks. And invariably we found the private school students were 20 points to the left, where average marks may be 50, private school students are getting 70%. So the net result was we introduced a thing by statistical studies called deprivation score. We said, if you went to a public school, then we'll add 5% more marks to your mark sheet. And that again became a big controversy. We went to courts and so on. But it turns out if you do a Google search of deprivation score, this is being used in England, it's being used in other countries. Even here, when they admit people to JNU and Delhi, they admit based on the deprivation score. So Srikakulam district, if you're from Srikakulam district, you get some additional deprivation score marks added to it. So the net result of all of that is we were able to select talented people with some, rumbling from some people, because there was a high court lawsuit where this kid was 2 miles away in another school and he got better marks, but he was not admitted. He said, how come? I have a better mark, but he was in a different mandal. So all kinds of complications, but we persevered. So the basic idea is the concept of geographic equity. Don't select people based on the best marks in the state and best marks in IAS for the whole country, because then you're only getting rich get richer. If you want to help the poor, don't select the best SCST, because they're invariably from well-educated families in cities. They happen to get into SCST cadre 50 or 100 years ago, and they're no longer that deprived. So it turns out we have been able to find over a 10-year period mechanisms for selecting and admitting people to this essentially free school, free graduate school. So, and I met with some of them last week. I was kind of amazed. Almost none of their parents have gone to college. None of them have gone beyond high school or something, because there was opportunities not there. They can't afford it. It's not, no matter how bright you might be, and then you get filtered out. People like me. I don't know about child even to city school, so it doesn't count. But like that, black sheep, basically, I not only got good marks, but my parents were able to afford to send me to college. They were not rich by any means, but they were not poor. So anyway, the other experiment, there are 3 points I wanted you to take away from this. We're on the verge of conquering the language divide. You'll be able to talk to anyone, watch any movie, and read any book without a language divide. We are also on the verge of providing a guardian angel, not on the verge, 50 years back, 30, 40 years back. And the biggest problem there is overcoming the suspicion about privacy protection. And the second thing is, can you collect data from every person on the planet, all the, their life support parameters, what their education level is, where they are. People don't want you to know where they are physically, location information. But it turns out it is not that secret anyway. If you own a smartphone, you can be discovered where you are. All it takes is to ping your smartphone with GST information, then you know where you are. Governments and people tracking terrorists and so on have the facilities to do that. You and I can't know. But even we can know if there's an app called, to find your children or something, so that you can actually track them, So anyway, so the three things that I want you to think about, go away with, is language divide, total information awareness on the planet, and how to help talented people, give them the opportunity. With that, I'm happy to answer questions and anything else.
Not going to say thank you because that's too simple a word to say. We enjoyed the
Thank you.
program. We've just listed out a few questions.
Okay.
We'll take as many as we can. The first one was, can AT tamper with or modify the DNA of humans or animals? Can I repeat?
Yes. These days, there is a technology called CRISPR. I don't know if you've heard of it. And Jennifer Doudna, a professor at Berkeley, got a Nobel Prize in biology for that. They are able to take any DNA and splice in additional things into it. So that can change. What I have not seen anywhere is the ability to take a modified DNA and plant it back into the womb of a mother, so that a child with some defects, sickle cell anemia or autism or some other defect, can be prevented from that thing. But I think it's happening. People are working on it.
Thank you. Please enlighten us with your views on IA and Elon Musk's brain implant of neuron chips, which was FDA approved for human trial.
Can you repeat
Uh,
that?
Please enlighten. Yeah.
IA. The IA is what? Intelligent assistant? What is IA? AI, and Elon Musk brain implant neurochips, which will be approved for human. People have been working on implants into the body. And there's a controversy about it. Any data you can get from human beings, non-invasively, it's okay. Even for that, you need FDA approval. Any invasive procedures require, serious exploration and approval from FDA. We have pacemakers and other kinds of transplants we already have in the body. But in general, I don't know if you saw, there's a movie, not made it, where they have a transplant in your hand. So as you walk anywhere into the store, they say, "Good morning, Mr. Reddy. How are you today?" How did they know? Because they talk, my computer chip on my hand talks to their computer store computer and can do that. So those kinds of things have been imagined and they can be done. The likelihood that we might have it for all the population of the planet is unlikely. But there's a cost associated with it. So Elon Musk's brain implant, all of those ideas are good, but the brain implant is done for people with paraplegics who cannot. So right now there have been several demonstrations where you can think some thought and the brain signal can actually pick it up and can be processed using AI and deep learning to essentially discover what you're saying. But the level of specificity is very low. If you limit the number of things I can think and do, actions I'm doing, and this is especially true for people who are paraplegic, who cannot do many things. They might say, I want to walk, right? And so the idea of controlling your muscles is something that we have to look into. They've been demonstrated, but whether you can read what is in your brain, what you're thinking, with no restrictions, it's unlikely, not in the near future that I know. So we need to I'm trying to think of an analogy. It's come to me. So anyway, the brain implants are a good thing for limited population who need help because they're paraplegic or they have some other. They have these days what we call exoskeletons. If you cannot walk by yourself, these exoskeletons attached to your body can make you walk. And but all of them are both expensive and time-consuming and not yet ready for prime time.
Thank you. Can AI be misused to curb innovation? If so, what needs to be done to prevent misuse?
AI can be misused for sure. The most of the current concerns about misuse of AI is in the area of what we call deep fakes. So if you go to Google and type Obama speaking Chinese, Obama cannot speak Chinese. Turns out, some research group in China has taken his English speech and did the speech-to-speech translation. And the great thing about it is when they resynthesized it, they maintained the not only his vocal characteristics, it sounded exactly like him, but also his stress and intonation patterns, prosodic features, we call it. So he sounds just like him, but he's speaking Chinese. Okay. So now, if you go forward 10 years now, turns out now that technology is well understood. So it is possible now to make it appear as though Putin and Sunak have made some special underhanded deal. It may not be correct, but it can be synthesized. There are all kinds of other things you can think of. And the most threatening one I know is the fatwa. As you know, if it is seen as though you're insulting the Prophet, then some imam might issue a fatwa saying he should be killed. That's what happened to Salman Rushdie. Even after 20, 30 years, they still have been going after him. And so you need a whole security force. So it is easy today to create videos of me or you saying something that would be very insulting if you're a Muslim. And if you're, insulting the Prophet. The question is, what do you do? It turns out that there's also counter research to detect fakes. But the problem is, by the time you detect the fakes and make it up public, the damage is done. And the people go, mad and rampage and turn the buses upside down, whatever they need to do. And this kind of thing is likely to happen. And it's just something I'm kind of waiting to, whenever I see it, I don't know, this is a dreadful consequence of AI. But does that mean we should stop working on AI? I don't know about that, but even if we stop, Chinese won't stop, or the Russians won't stop. But more importantly, every technology has a downside. So if you go back 100 years, when the first Ford motor cars were coming out, you didn't need a driver's license. There was no driver's license. Anybody could drive anywhere at any speed. And unfortunately, there were no highways, and they have to deal with dirt roads. And at that time, if you said we should ban cars because it will lead to all kinds of accidents and people will die, you might be suspicious of it, but it is believable, right? However, if I said 1 million people, 1.3 million people will die every year because of this technology in 100 years from now, you wouldn't believe it. You'd think it's fake. That's how many people die in automotive accidents in the world today. 1.3 million people. India alone, there are over 200,000 deaths every year. Fatalities from automotive. So should we stop? Or I'm not sure. And so there will always be downsides. Society has to make rules and regulations to control the downside so that it's not misused. And the penalties have to be severe. But I think that's what will happen. Basically, even in the US, and they've agreed on some speed bumps to things that to slow down. One of the things they discovered is this bias. Because the information they get might be biased. If you happen to come from a particular location, if your address is in Harlem or something, you apply for a loan, you don't get it. Mainly because it's the location. So there are all kinds of biases that people have identified. These things will be fixed. But in general, there will be downside. And we have to be constantly alert to discover and control the things. And in the past, if you look at all the rules and regulations, the laws that we have, going back to Hammurabi Code, these are all codes that have been established to protect the people. And the Ten Commandments of Moses, everything, they're all believed to be laws you follow so that you are not causing problems with society.
What are your views on drones?
Drones.
Enabled by AI and capable of killing a designated individual by seeking and identifying the targeted person through face recognition.
Yeah. There's a positive side of exactly what you just said. Right now, these missiles from Russia are going and hitting indiscriminately hospitals and all kinds of things. If you had an intelligent drone, which only is allowed to kill the soldiers or destroy the army ammunition, but not hit any civilian population. And right now they say it's collateral damage. It's not collateral damage. We will be able to do much more controlled warfare, hopefully. That might save people. But on the other hand, the technology you talked about already exists. That's how not Osama bin Laden was there. There was a recent another Zawahiri or somebody. Yeah, one of them was killed, targeted by the thing, because they could do it. Whether it's right or wrong, we don't know. For him, for them, for the US, it was justified because he was killing thousands of their people. And so there it was. So there's no end to this, unfortunately.
What are the special or unique features of the scanners used for scanning books for the digital library?
We were fortunate by the time we, in the 1990, when we started looking at it, there was this big problem of cutting up books and scanning each page at a time. And libraries were completely against it. That you can't cut up our books, you can scan them if you want. And so there were high-speed scanners that were done, where you could open a book and put it on the scanner. So the page, when it's imaged, will have curvature. The characters will be distorted in various ways. But it turns out that curvature can be discovered and remedied, corrected, so that your corrected page looks like the original page, even though the scan has curvature. And they were really able to build that in by year 2000 or so. So we bought, CMU bought 1,000 scanners. We even gave 5 to the library here in Karnataka. They scanned Kannada books. I don't know where they are now, but we're trying to track them down after 20 years. But we scanned a lot of books. And the technology was there. Yes, it was high-speed scanning.
Since we seem to be running out of time, I think we take up a lot of your precious time.
No problem. Thank you. So,
Thank you so much.
if you want, and I'd be happy to answer some questions from anybody for another 5-10 minutes.
We have a few more questions.
Yeah. We have a couple of more questions.
Sure.
We can come in. One is, so every general question of the social economic impact of AI on India and how it can shape the future of the country in the next years.
Yeah, there's both positive and negative economic impact that are possible. So the main thing that things like GPT and latest language tools are able to do is speed up your working process. You can do, let's say you're a programmer. Now, if you've been trained on how to effectively use GPT, you can program 2, 4, 3, 10 times faster. Because the desired code will appear to you just. So this has led to the concern that programmers will start losing jobs. That is probably true in the short term. It's no different than what happened in the Industrial Revolution. In the Industrial Revolution, there were big riots and Luddites and so on, because they were worried about losing their jobs in the spinning mills. But as it turned out, the technology also created many more jobs, many more opportunities, greater wealth and so on. So I think we need to deal with the short-term unemployment might happen. And so we have all these programmers we have trained. They're all going abroad and working. And some of them may lose their jobs, which they are. And the question is, how do we protect them? And there have been a number of proposals. The most interesting one is the concept of UBI, Universal Basic Income. That is, no matter who you are, we're going to give you 1,000 rupees a month or 2,000 rupees a month. It's free. Then there's income tax, other things, but this is completely free to everyone. So the assumption is, if you give everyone a living income, then they will figure out what to do with their life. It may take them a year or 2 or 3. They don't have to be homeless or become desperate, lose their health insurance, all kinds of things. So I think this will evolve. The concepts are there. It is just a question of whether there's enough money to give everybody 1,000 or 2,000 rupees to 1.4 billion people in the country. There's a very interesting book called Money by Just Money, more recent book, 3-4 years ago. There is an economic theory which says you can print as much money as you want and give it to anybody you want. You don't have to have a gold standard or anything else. The only thing you have to control is inflation. Whatever you're buying, you should buy the same amount of money, but the same amount of price or commodities for the same amount. If the inflation types up. That's why in the US, everywhere around the world now, there's a major concern about inflation. They are raising the interest rates and to control the inflation. And we printed a lot of money during COVID, trillions of dollars, and gave it away for free. And now it's catching up. There's all this money that's floating around in the society, and they have to control it.
There was one more question on the impact of AI on the learning systems and education in schools. Where do you think that the emergence of ChatGPT and
So, if computer will do everything for you, why should you learn to read or go to school or anything, right? So it turns out computers make mistakes. They're not infallible in any way, shape, or form. And even if you're a programmer and your assistant tells you this is the program that will solve the problem, turns out invariably there's some mistakes. And unless you are smarter than the machine, you are able to read the program yourself and say, I don't believe it. I think there's a mistake here. You can challenge it. It has to go back and do some more testing and come back with an answer. So I believe you need to have more education than less. Namely, let us say you write an essay. You have to write an essay for your school, and you go to your ChatGPT and say, give me an essay on this topic, and write some stuff. You still have to read it and question every sentence. Question. Say, I don't believe you. This is wrong. Prove it is right. And you can carry on a conversation. Ultimately, you'll get it right. But in general, there are some necessary conditions for you to be able to effectively use the technology. Just like if you want to use a car, you need to get a driver's license. You need to learn how to drive. It will take time. You have to do the same thing here. You have to be taught how to effectively use the tool. It's no different from my point of view than when we invented the calculator. And there was big hue and cry. They said, with the calculator, people will stop doing multiplication, division. They won't know any arithmetic. Nothing bad has happened. And so I think same thing will happen here. Namely, we will have the people that can effectively use the tool will do much better than people that cannot. So it's important for us to educate all our children to how to effectively use all these tools and do the job they're supposed to do in 1 hour instead of 10 hours. That still gives them another 10 hours. They can learn a lot more. Right now, if you read a book every day, the maximum number of books you can read is 40,000 books. There are 100 million books that have been published. What ChatGPT is doing is they're reading not 100 million, but several million books. That means they have 100 times more knowledge, more information than you have. And they're able to help you with that information. So it's not yet clear, all the implications. The people are using it everywhere, and are using it in the stock market. The doctors are using it, education, and even in universities at IIIT, where I am the chairman, we are using, changing the curriculum to add effective use of AI tools to solve the problems. Rather than saying, no, you should use it, otherwise you say, use it, but demonstrate to us that you know how to use it, you know that it's right. Because the instructor might challenge you saying, I think you copied it is wrong. So you need to be able to say.
What question, very specific question on the concept and principles, prompt engineering, and whether how to get more accurate answers posted to AI.
Can you repeat?
Prompt engineering.
Yeah, acoustics are not good. Yeah, but anyway, the prompt, prompt engineering, as it's called sometimes, is the best way to effectively use the tool is to kind of constantly say, challenge the tool, saying, I don't believe this sentence. Give me the reasoning behind it. Is there a paper that you, so you can go all the way back to where it came from.
I should make this the last one. This does not have anything to do with the AI, but it has to do with you. Just to get it down. The wide range or complexity of your work, covering so many fields over so many years, requires an exceptionally good and reliable delivery. Well above that of an average person. Could you please let us know what steps you have adopted to acquire such a
I don't know. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.